Hello everyone, welcome to Southern Wreaths. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made this really beautiful rose gold and gold mesh wreath. The camera does not show you how amazingly beautiful this wreath turns out to be. It has lots of sparkle, lots of glitter, lots of glam. It's a really beautiful wreath. I decided to do a bubble method with this wreath. And I'm going to start by cutting my pipe cleaners in half. I later on cut them into fourths. So if you wanted to just do that from the beginning, you could. Because I found that you don't actually need the whole half of a pipe cleaner. It makes too much bulk on the back. I'm using a 14-inch wire frame and 21-inch rose gold metallic mesh. And I'm just going to attach it to the frame with a zip tie after I gather it all together. It doesn't really matter if you start on the inside or the outside of your frame. I always tend to do the outside layer first, so I'm just going to attach the zip tie to the crossbar in between the last two bars, last two rings of my wreath. I'm just going to push that to the back and then trim everything away. This wreath does take more mesh than a normal poof method wreath, but it comes out so beautiful. I'm making 10-inch poofs, and I decided to not fluff this wreath until I get to the end, and that's because I wanted to fill it up as much as possible, and I thought if I started fluffing it right away, I wouldn't put as many poofs or bubbles in each section. And I'm just going to make the pipe cleaner bend in half and then just go over the mesh and one of the bars, and I'm using the second bar from the outside, and I'm going to use that bar going all the way around. I had some of my mesh pop out of the zip tie, so I'm just using some hot glue to keep it in place so it doesn't pull out anymore. And do you see how with the pipe cleaners you can move the mesh back and forth, so you can really get a lot of mesh in there? And here's where I decided I'm going to go ahead and cut these pipe cleaners in half because there was a lot sticking out of the back. And it really gets in the way when you're making the wreath. If these are too small for you, then go ahead and just keep them in half. I wouldn't recommend using a whole one because that would really have a lot of bulk. Right, and like I said, I'm just using my mat to help me measure so I can have each bubble be the same size. And you can add as much or as little as you want into each section, just depending on the look you're going for. I wanted mine to be really full. I went ahead and took a break to go ahead and cut all of my pipe cleaners. It makes it easier than having to go through and do it as you're working. And here I'm going to turn it around and show you how I twist it. I am going to count how many I put in each section. I'm putting 3 in each section on the outside and 2 on the inside. See how much longer that one pipe cleaner is? It was overkill. And you might not think 3 is enough, but once this wreath is done, it is really full and really beautiful. And I'm just going to quickly go through and finish adding my mesh. If anyone's interested in following me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Southern Wreaths More, on Facebook at Southern Wreaths, and I also have a Facebook group called Southern Wreaths and More. I would love to see any of the wreaths you've made, especially if you do any based on my videos. That would be amazing. I also have all of these links in the description below. Once I finish going around the outside, I'm going to move to the inside. And I just did a poof going from the outside to the center. I didn't actually pull the mesh up and attach it to the center. You could do that if you want to. I'm attaching the mesh on the inside to the second from the inside ring. So the 2 center rings are the ones that have the mesh attached to them. And now I'm just going to continue making the 10-inch poofs all the way around. And then at the end, I'll attach it with a zip tie and trim that away. I don't have a lot left over. I used almost all of this roll of mesh. But I'm doing the center the same way as the outside. I did notice that I wasn't measuring the exact same, and I really wanted these to be as level as possible. So I just judged it off of the outside poop, how big to make it. And now I'm just going to go through and tuck in all of the pipe cleaners that are sticking out. You don't want to really leave those loose because they have wires in them and they can scratch someone's door. I'm going to fluff my wreath, and I'm just reaching into the bubbles and pulling out the mesh. I'm not really pulling out the edges because I still want it to be in the shape of a bubble. I'm just basically covering up any part of the wreath frame that you can see, especially the pipe cleaners because they're white. You don't really want to see those through the mesh. And this part didn't really take as long as I thought it was going to take, and it was kind of calming, just doing the repetitive over and over again. And it looked so pretty when it was done. If you have any part of your wreath that you can still see the frame or any of the zip ties, pipe cleaners, just pull your mesh over that area. I wasn't really worried about it since I was adding all this stuff to it. Now I'm just showing you all the different flowers and picks I'm going to use. There's lots of glitter. This is the rose gold flowers, and they have like a netting for the center leaves. It's really pretty. When I bought these, I bought them at Christmas. I went ahead and went through and hot glued all of the leaves or the flowers to the tops of the stems. I usually have to do that right before I use them, but I was bored one day and just went ahead and went through and glued them all because they tend to pop off easily. I'm cutting probably 2 to 3 inches down from the flower so I have a really good sized stem to attach it to the wreath. I'm just adding hot glue on all sides of the stem and then sticking them anywhere I want to in the mesh. You can stick them directly into the mesh or in between. You just want to make sure that your stem is touching the mesh. If you find that you can't get a good grip on it, all you have to do is add a little bit of hot glue to the actual flower and that'll stick to the mesh. I went through at the end and shook the wreath upside down to make sure nothing was going to fall out. Because since I'm adding so much stuff, I really didn't want anything to come loose. And this glue holds really well, so that was kind of nice. And I am cutting each bundle as I need it instead of going through and cutting them all because I didn't end up needing as many as I thought I was going to. With these rose gold leaves or flowers, they were wanting to lay on themselves, so I went through and spread each one out before I added it to the wreath. I did notice that some of them I had to tack down to the actual mesh because they wouldn't lay down right. And these right here that I'm adding are my favorite flowers by far. They're just all glitter. They're really beautiful. This one right here is super duper messy. It has a ton of glitter on it. I think it's like a fern that's just nothing but gold glitter. I was originally going to cut and keep the stems, but then I noticed that there were different size leaves on the picks. So I just go through and pull them all out and separate the small ones from the larger ones. I went through and added all of the small leaves first. My camera died and I didn't get to show you how I added the big ones. But I'm basically doing what I'm showing you right here, except that when I lay the fern down across the wreath, I tack it down to the wreath so it lays down flat. If you don't want yours to lay flat, you don't have to do that. I just thought it was nice to have it running along inside the wreath. And now I'm just adding my berries. I tried to make sure I, spaced out everything as much as I could. I don't have a lot of leaves in one place, a lot of berries in one. I kind of put them throughout the wreath. It's a good thing to work with in 3s or 5s. It just makes everything look balanced. And then I'm just going to go through and tack down anything that's sticking out and doesn't look the way I want it to. This might make you dizzy, but I wanted to show you all the glitter and sparkle that was on this wreath, and it was hard to do it when it was sitting still. But that's it. That's how I did my bubble method rose gold wreath. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can always email me at craftingwithlee@yahoo.com. Thanks so much for watching, and if y'all learned anything today or liked my video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.